The desert was silent, except for the wind brushing against the bones of an old town. Moonlight slid down the broken sign that once read Dry Creek. Horses shifted restlessly outside the saloon, their breath turning to silver mist in the night. A stranger rode in slow, his hat pulled low, his coat heavy with dust and memory. His name was Cole Maddox, an outlaw with too many graves behind him and one promise that kept him alive. He had the look of a man hunted by both the law and his own heart. Inside the saloon, whiskey lamps burned low. Men spoke in murmurs, cards clacked against wood, and the piano in the corner had long gone silent. At the far end of the room, a woman in a deep red dress leaned over the counter, her back to the crowd. Her name was Lila Avery. She was the kind of beauty the West tried to forget, soft eyes, steady hands, and a loneliness that whispered louder than gunfire. Cole pushed the door open. The hinges groaned. Every head turned. He didn't look at them. His eyes found her, like they'd been searching through dust and storm for this one glimpse. Lila felt that gaze before she turned. When she did, her breath caught. Something in his silence felt like recognition, though they had never met. He ordered a drink. His voice was rough sand and rain. "Whiskey. No glass if you're short on clean ones." She smiled faintly, pouring it anyway. "We keep one for men who look like trouble." "Then you better keep two," he said. A quiet laugh escaped her, soft and tired. "You're not from here." "No one ever is," he answered. Outside, thunder rolled low across the desert. The storm hadn't come yet, but it was close enough to smell, the sharp promise of rain on dry earth. Lila's fingers brushed his when she set down the glass. The touch was brief, but it struck through him like a match against stone. For a moment, the world held its breath. He turned the glass slowly, staring into the amber light. "Place like this," he said, "feels like it's waiting for something to end." She met his eyes. "Maybe it's waiting for something to begin." The saloon's door creaked again. 2 riders stepped in, dust, leather, and hate. One of them wore a sheriff's badge, though his eyes were meaner than any outlaw's. Cole didn't move, but his jaw set. Lila felt the shift in the air, the quiet before a strike. The sheriff's voice cut through the room. "Cole Maddox. Been a long time since you rode into a town you didn't burn." Cole didn't answer. He finished the whiskey, set the glass down with a slow, steady hand. Lila's voice trembled just enough. "You should go." He looked at her, and something unspoken passed between them, something both of them understood but couldn't name. Then he stood, calm as the coming storm. "If I leave now," he said softly, "they'll follow you." She swallowed hard. "Then don't leave." The room went still. The sheriff's hand hovered near his gun. Lightning cracked somewhere beyond the window. Cole smiled once, slow, dangerous, tender. "Guess that settles it." Outside, the wind rose. Inside, the air thickened with the promise of trouble and something far deeper. Lila's heart pounded as Cole stepped forward, the world narrowing to his voice and the storm beyond. Sometimes danger comes wearing the shape of salvation. The storm broke before midnight. Wind clawed through the streets of Dry Creek, rattling signs and shaking the old windows. Inside the saloon, lamps flickered against the walls, shadows moving like restless ghosts. The sheriff and his man had taken the back table, watching Cole through the smoke. Lila tried to keep her hands steady as she wiped the counter. But every move Cole made drew her eyes, how he leaned back with quiet ease, how his gaze stayed fixed on the door, how his breath seemed measured against danger itself. "You plan to stay long?" she asked, voice soft but brave. "Long enough to see the rain stop," he said. "Could be days." "Then I'll pay in kind." "You got money?" He met her eyes. "Not the kind that buys peace." Her lips pressed into something between a smile and sorrow. "Then maybe I'll take stories instead." He nodded once. "Fair trade." The sheriff rose. His boots struck the floor heavy as judgment. "You think hiding in this place makes you safe, Maddox? You've been riding free too long." Cole didn't move. His tone was quiet, but each word carried weight. "I ain't hiding, just resting." The man behind the sheriff laughed, mean and hollow. "Resting before the rope tightens." Lila's voice broke the silence. "He hasn't done anything here. You'll spill blood for pride." The sheriff turned to her, eyes narrowing. "You ought to stay out of men's business, Miss Avery." Cole stood. His chair scraped slow against the wood. "Seems to me she's got more sense than either of you." The next sound was thunder. Or maybe it was the hammer of a gun. No one could tell. Cole moved faster than sight, his revolver low, his stance solid. The sheriff's man froze with his hand halfway drawn. No one breathed. Cole's voice stayed level. "You can ride out now, or stay and find out how unlucky a storm can get." Rain slammed the roof. Lightning burned white against the window. The sheriff's jaw twitched, but he stepped back. "This ain't done," he muttered, shoving the door open and vanishing into the downpour. Silence returned, broken only by the hiss of rain. Cole holstered his gun and turned toward the counter. Lila hadn't moved. Her voice came quiet. "You could have killed him. Didn't need to." "You always walk that line?" "Most days." Something in the way he said it, flat, certain, weary, made her chest ache. She poured him another whiskey, though her hands trembled now. "You saved me trouble tonight." He took the glass, eyes steady on hers. "You don't strike me as someone who needs saving." "I don't," she said. "But I don't mind being seen." That hit him deeper than he wanted to show. His thumb brushed the rim of the glass. "Ain't many folks look close enough to see." "Then maybe you've been looking in the wrong places." Outside, the thunder softened. The storm was moving east, leaving the air clean and cold. Lila lit another lamp. Its glow painted her face in amber and shadow. Cole watched her move, calm, graceful, like someone used to rebuilding from ruin. "You got a room upstairs?" he asked finally. "For rent or for hiding?" "For the night." Her eyes held his. $10. He reached into his coat, dropped a handful of coins on the counter. Silver, worn, honest. "That cover a little quiet, too?" She nodded once, slow. "Room at the end of the hall." He turned toward the stairs. At the first step, he paused. "You lock the door after me." "I always do." When his boots faded above, she leaned against the counter, heart beating too hard, breath catching in the quiet. Something about that man, the danger, the stillness, The way he looked at her like she mattered had unsettled every wall she'd built. Upstairs, Cole stood by the window, watching the last of the lightning fade over the desert. For the first time in years, he felt something he couldn't name. Maybe it was peace. Maybe it was the start of ruin. Either way, it felt real. And somewhere below, a woman in a red dress couldn't sleep, her thoughts circling a stranger's voice beneath the western moon. The morning came slow, sliding pale gold through the cracks of the shutters. Dry Creek still slept beneath the weight of last night's storm. The streets were streaked with mud and moonlight fading from the puddles. The desert smelled of wet dust and quiet regret. Cole was already awake. He sat at the edge of the narrow bed, boots on, hat resting on his knee. He hadn't slept much. Men like him rarely did. The sound of rain on the roof had pulled him into old memories. Voices he couldn't forget. Faces he couldn't save. Downstairs, the saloon came to life with the scrape of chairs and the low hum of morning work. Lila moved through it like someone trying to outrun her thoughts. She polished bottles that were already clean, rearranged glasses no one would use before noon. When he came down the stairs, her breath caught in that quiet way again, soft, hidden, undeniable. He looked different in the daylight, still dangerous, but human, the hard lines of his face softened by sunlight and exhaustion. "You sleep?" she asked. "Enough to remember I was still alive." "That's a start." He leaned on the counter. "You keep talking like that. Someone might think you care." She smiled faintly. Someone might be right. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The air between them was steady and slow, filled with the warmth of things not yet said. Cole finally broke it. "That sheriff won't let go easy." "I know. He's run half the men out of this town, thinks fear keeps order." "Fear keeps people small," Cole said. "Maybe that's why I stay behind this bar. Small feels safe." He studied her face. "You don't look built for safe." She laughed, quiet and sad. "Maybe not. But I'm tired of running." "So am I." The words slipped out before he could stop them. She heard something true in them, something that didn't belong to the outlaw's mask he wore so well. Before she could answer, a noise outside broke the calm. Hoofbeats. 3 of them, steady and fast, cutting through the morning hush. Lila went still. Cole turned to the window. Dust rose at the far end of the street. Riders. Not lawmen this time, he could tell by the way they moved, the loose confidence of men who made their own rules. "You expecting company?" he asked. "No." "You?" "Not the kind that rides quiet." He checked the chamber of his revolver, movements slow, practiced. Lila's hand brushed his arm without meaning to. "You don't have to fight." He met her eyes. "There's always a fight somewhere. I just try to pick the ones worth bleeding for." "And is this one?" He glanced at her, then at the door. "Ask me after." The riders stopped outside. The saloon fell silent. Cole moved to the middle of the room, every step measured, every breath steady. Lila's pulse thudded against her ribs. The door swung open. 3 men stepped in, reins still clinging to their coats. The one in front smiled, a thin, sharp line that didn't reach his eyes. "Well, I'll be," he drawled. "Cole Maddox, the man who left my brother in the dust outside Red Hollow." Cole didn't blink. "Your brother drew first." And you buried him. He buried himself. The man's smile died. His hand drifted to his gun. Guess I'll dig a second grave then. Lila's voice cut in before Steele could sing. You'll do no such thing. Every head turned. She stood behind the counter, chin lifted, eyes burning with something fierce and fragile. Not in my saloon. Not today. The man laughed, cold. You think we take orders from a barkeep? I think you take orders from your fear, she said. For a second, no one moved. Then Cole stepped forward, calm as dusk. You heard the lady. The room tensed. The sound of a hammer cocking echoed like thunder. And then, in a blur, Cole's revolver flashed. A single shot cracked through the silence, shattering glass, scattering dust. One of the men dropped his weapon. The other two froze. Cole's voice was low, deadly steady. Next time, I won't aim wide. The men backed away, dragging their wounded pride with them. When the door slammed shut behind them, Lila's knees weakened. Cole holstered his gun and turned to her. You didn't have to step in, he said. Neither did you. He looked at her for a long moment, the corner of his mouth twitching into something almost like a smile. Guess we're both bad at keeping quiet. She reached for his hand then, hesitant, trembling. Her fingers brushed his, just long enough to feel warmth beneath the calluses. Maybe quiet's overrated. Outside, the last clouds broke, spilling sunlight across the wet desert. Inside, a heartbeat of peace hung in the air, fragile as a promise. By nightfall, the town had gone still again. The rain had dried to dust, and Dry Creek slept beneath a wide, pale moon. But for Cole and Lila, sleep didn't come easy. He sat outside the saloon now, on the front steps, a cigarette glowing faintly between his fingers. The desert stretched endless beyond the lamplight, quiet, watchful. His horse grazed near the trough, and every sound carried for miles. Behind him, soft footsteps broke the silence. Lila. She wore a shawl around her shoulders, hair loose from its pins. In the moonlight, she looked like a secret the desert was trying to keep. You should be resting, she said. He didn't turn. Can't rest when the past rides this close. Those men from this morning. Not them. The one who sent them. She stepped closer, her voice low. You mean the sheriff? Cole nodded once. He won't let it go. We crossed paths before. Long time back. She sat on the step beside him, close enough to feel the warmth of him through the cool night air. Tell me, she whispered. He stared at the horizon. He had a brother. Young. Wild. Thought robbing a payroll train would make him a legend. I tried to stop him, but he pulled a gun. Sheriff's brother died on that train track. He's been hunting me ever since. Lila was quiet for a long time. And you've been running? Not from him, from what I became afterward. Her hand found his sleeve. You think that's all you are. What happened back then? Some nights it feels that way. Then maybe tonight's the start of something different. He turned, finally, meeting her eyes. There was no pity in them, only understanding, soft and steady like firelight. You talk like you've lost things too, he said. I have, she answered. A man once promised me forever, then rode east and never looked back. I waited till the river froze twice. After that, I learned to build walls instead of waiting at doors. Guess we both been waiting on ghosts, Cole said. Maybe, she whispered, but ghosts don't stare at me the way you do. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It pulsed with something alive, dangerous, needed. Cole's gaze lingered on her mouth, her breath visible in the cold air. You should go inside, he said, voice low. Maybe I will, she murmured, if you follow. He hesitated. Then he rose and followed her through the saloon doors. Inside, the lamplight painted gold across the walls, the tables, her skin. She moved slow, like she knew every heartbeat he tried to steady. He stopped near the bar, watching her light another lamp. You keep this place open late, he asked. Sometimes I keep it open for the wrong reasons. Like now? She smiled faintly. Like now. He took off his hat, set it down on the counter. You sure you want to cross that line? I think I already did, she said. Her voice trembled, not from fear, but from everything she'd buried and didn't want to lose again. He stepped closer. The world seemed to shrink to the sound of their breaths and the hum of the oil lamps. His fingers brushed her jaw, light as dust on glass. She didn't move away. You smell like rain, he said, and you smell like trouble. Maybe they're the same thing. Their faces were inches apart now, every breath a question. Then, somewhere outside, a shutter slammed. Both froze. The sound was sharp, sudden, wrong. Cole's hand dropped to his gun before the echo faded. He crossed to the window, peered through the crack. Shadows moved along the street. 3 riders again, silent under the moon. Not the same men as before. Looks like the sheriff found friends, he muttered. Lila's voice came quiet, steady. Then we leave. He turned to her. You'd ride with me? I've been standing still too long. Their eyes locked, the truth between them clear as the stars outside. He nodded once. Dawn then, before the town wakes. She reached for his hand, her grip firm, fearless. Promise me one thing, Cole. What's that? That you won't disappear when the sun comes up. He looked at her like he was memorizing her face. Under this moon, I can't promise that. But I'll try. The lamps flickered, the wind shifted, and outside the desert waited, knowing that by morning nothing in Dry Creek would ever be the same. The first light of dawn crept across the desert, brushing gold against the rooftops of Dry Creek. The town still slept, unaware of what was leaving it behind. Cole saddled his horse in silence. The leather creaked, soft and worn, the way only a life on the run could shape it. Lila stepped out from the back door of the saloon, a satchel slung across her shoulder. The morning wind lifted her hair, and the red of her dress caught the weak sunlight. She looked like she didn't belong in this broken town anymore, like the desert itself was calling her name. You sure about this? Cole asked. She met his gaze. You asked me that last night. I'm still asking. Then I'm still sure. He helped her mount behind him. Her hands found his waist, hesitant at first, then certain. He felt her breath at his back. Hold tight, he said. They rode out slow at first, the town shrinking behind them. The trail cut through a narrow canyon, its walls still damp from the night rain. Every hoofbeat echoed, soft and steady, like a promise they hadn't yet spoken. By mid-morning, the sun burned through the mist. The land opened wide, nothing but red rock, sagebrush, and silence. Lila leaned closer, her voice near his ear. "Where are we going?" "West," he said. "What's west?" "Freedom. Maybe forgiveness, if the land's kind enough." She smiled faintly against his shoulder. "You sound like a man chasing ghosts." He glanced back at her. "Maybe I'm just chasing a reason to stop running." Her eyes softened. "Maybe you already found one." They rode until the heat shimmered on the horizon. A lone cottonwood stood near a dry creek bed, shade enough to rest. Cole dismounted, tied the horse, and offered her a hand down. When her feet touched the ground, she didn't let go of his hand right away. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For not leaving me behind." He looked at her, the corners of his mouth barely curving. "You'd have followed anyway." "Probably," she said, and laughed, a sound he hadn't known he'd missed until that moment. They found an old fire pit near the tree. Cole gathered dry brush, struck a match, and soon the smoke curled upward, thin and blue. Lila sat beside him, knees drawn close, eyes on the flame. The quiet between them was different now, not guarded, but easy. "You ever stop running before?" she asked. "Once," he said. "Didn't end well." "What happened?" "I started to believe I deserved peace. The world reminded me I didn't." She studied him. "And now?" He looked into the fire, the light flickering across his face. "Now, I'm not so sure." The wind shifted. She reached out, brushing a strand of hair from his brow. The touch was small, but it steadied him in a way no weapon ever had. "You deserve more than running," she said softly. "Maybe we both do." Her fingers lingered against his cheek. He caught her hand, held it there, not too tight, not enough to trap, just to feel the truth of her warmth. "You keep looking at me like you see something worth saving," he said. "Maybe I do." He swallowed hard, his voice rough. "Don't mistake a broken man for a safe one." "I'm not looking for safe," she whispered. "I'm looking for real." The desert around them was quiet, the kind of quiet that made you forget there was ever noise in the world. He leaned closer, close enough to feel her breath. The fire cracked, soft and low, the scent of smoke and rain mixing in the air. Their lips met, slow at first, then certain. The world fell away. Every scar, every sorrow, every mile of dust they'd carried burned into that one moment of warmth. When they finally pulled apart, the silence held something new, a peace that didn't ask to last forever, just long enough to mean something. Lila smiled, eyes shining in the firelight. "Guess you're not running anymore." He touched her face, thumb tracing the edge of her jaw. "Guess not." The sun climbed higher. The desert shimmered. Somewhere in the distance, a hawk cried, its voice stretching wide and lonely across the sky. Cole looked west again, the horizon open and endless. For the first time, it didn't scare him. By the second night, the desert had swallowed the trail behind them. No lights. No sound but wind and hoofbeats. Cole guided the horse toward a line of black hills ahead, where a small cabin stood half hidden in the rock shadow. It wasn't much. 4 walls, a roof that leaned too far, and a door that still remembered the sound of gunfire. But it was shelter, and that was enough. He helped Lila down, his hands steady around her waist. She lingered close a moment longer than needed, feeling the heat of his body against the night's chill. He met her eyes, but said nothing. Words seemed too heavy for what they both felt. Inside, the cabin smelled of old wood and dust. Cole struck a match, lit a lamp. The glow stretched across rough boards and the narrow bed in the corner. Lila set her satchel down and brushed her hands together. "Cozy," she said, voice soft. He gave a faint smile. "For a place built by outlaws and storms. Guess we fit right in." She crossed the room, fingertips grazing the old table, tracing scars left by knives and time. "How long you think we can stay here?" "Long enough to breathe." "That's not long," she said. He poured water from a jug into 2 tin cups. "Long enough still counts." They sat near the fire pit, the kind someone had carved into the floor. He lit it with dry brush and broken chair legs. The flames climbed slow, gold and patient. Lila watched the light play against his face. The shadows deepened the quiet in his eyes. "You always carry that look," she said. "What look?" "Like you've already said goodbye to everything that matters." He stared into the fire. "Most things I cared about didn't make it this far." "Then maybe it's time to find something that does." He looked at her, then. The words hung in the air between them, warm and dangerous. She didn't look away. Outside, wind howled through the rocks, carrying the smell of rain. The first drops hit the roof, slow and heavy. Thunder rolled across the plain, a sound both distant and close. Lila rose, walked to the window. "Storm's chasing us again." "Storm's got good taste," he said. She turned toward him, half smiling. "You always talk like that?" "Only when I forget to be careful." She crossed the room and stopped beside him. "Then don't be careful." He stood. The fire painted them both in flickering gold. For a long moment they just looked at each other, two souls who'd run out of reasons to hide. When he reached for her, she didn't pull back. His hands found her waist, rough palms against the softness of her dress. Her fingers slid into his hair, trembling but sure. The storm outside grew louder, as if the sky itself wanted to drown the world so nothing else could hear them. He kissed her slow, deep, as though time had forgotten to move. Every heartbeat felt earned, every breath something they'd both been owed. The walls shook with thunder, but inside there was only warmth, the kind that made the past seem far away. Later they lay in the dim light, the rain easing into rhythm. Her head rested against his shoulder, his arm curved around her like the promise of quiet after years of noise. She spoke into the silence. "You think the storm's done?" He brushed his thumb along her arm. "Storms don't end. They just move on." "Then what are we?" He smiled faintly. "Maybe what's left standing after." She closed her eyes, breathing him in. The smoke, the rain, the truth she hadn't expected to find. Outside, the desert sighed, washed clean again. Inside, two hearts beat in the same slow rhythm, like thunder fading into dawn. Morning broke soft and silver. The storm had passed, leaving a stillness that felt almost holy. The cabin walls glowed with pale light, and for the first time in years, Cole Maddox woke to silence instead of fear. Lila stirred beside him, wrapped in the warmth of the blanket and the faint smell of smoke. Her hair fell loose across his chest, her breath steady against his skin. For a while, he just watched her sleep, memorizing what peace looked like when it finally found him. When her eyes opened, the first thing she saw was him. He looked younger in the daylight. the edges of his hardness softened by quiet. She smiled, small and true. "You look almost human this morning." He grinned faintly. "Don't ruin my reputation." She sat up, the blanket slipping down her shoulder. The light caught her skin like the first warmth after winter. "Last night," she whispered, "I forgot the world existed." "Maybe it didn't," he said. For a moment, they just breathed together. The silence between them was full but easy, like a song they both knew the tune to, but peace never lasted long in Cole's life. It never could. A sound outside broke the calm. Hoofbeats again, slow, deliberate, too careful to be strangers. Cole rose, pulling on his shirt, every movement practiced. "Stay inside," he said. Lila's voice sharpened. "Who is it?" "Could be the sheriff. Could be worse." She reached for his arm. "Cole, don't go out there." He looked at her, eyes steady. "Some things still need facing." He stepped out into the daylight. The wind had dried the mud, leaving only the scent of rain. Two riders waited near the ridge, one older, one lean and mean-eyed. The older one wore the same badge Lila had seen before. The sheriff tipped his hat. "Didn't think you'd run this far." Cole didn't draw, didn't blink. "Didn't think you'd chase this long?" "I owe my brother that much," the sheriff said. "I tried to save him." "You failed." "Maybe, but he wasn't innocent, and you know it." The wind shifted. Dust swirled around their boots. The younger rider's hand hovered near his gun. Cole stood still, the world narrowing to the space between heartbeats. Lila appeared at the doorway. "Stop," she called out. "There's been enough death." The sheriff's eyes flicked toward her, then back to Cole. "You dragging her into your sins now?" Cole's voice was quiet steel. "She's here because she chose to be. Then she'll watch you die." The younger man moved first. A flash of steel, the split of sound, gunfire cracked through the open plain. Lila screamed. Cole spun, fired once, clean and final. The man fell. The sheriff froze. Smoke curled between them. Cole lowered his gun. "I don't want this, James. Never did." The sheriff's jaw tightened. "Then ride. Don't come back." Cole nodded. "You won't see me again." The sheriff turned his horse, eyes hard, but something inside them flickered. Maybe mercy, maybe just exhaustion. He rode away, leaving dust and silence behind. Cole stood there, the weight of it pressing down like the sky itself. Lila ran to him, hands trembling as she touched his arm. "You're bleeding." He looked down. A graze across his side, nothing more. "Guess luck ain't all bad." "You could have died," she whispered. He met her eyes, voice rough. "Would have been worth it if you were the last thing I saw." Her breath caught. She pressed her hand to his wound, firm but gentle. "Don't say things like that." "Why not?" "Because I'll start believing you mean them." "I do." She looked up at him then, eyes wet and fierce. "Then stop fighting the world like it's the only way to live." He lifted his hand, brushed her cheek, leaving a streak of dust against her skin. "I don't know any other way." "Then let me show you," she said. He smiled, quiet, tired, real. "You already are." They stood there in the bright morning, the desert stretching endless around them. Somewhere a hawk called, circling high and free. For the first time in years, Cole didn't look toward the horizon. He looked at her, and the world, for one fragile heartbeat, felt like it might forgive them both. They rode north by sundown, chasing the line where desert turned to mountain. The wind was cool there, carrying the scent of pine and rain. For the first time, the world looked less like an enemy and more like a promise. Cole's wound had dried, but the stiffness in his side kept him silent. Lila rode beside him now, not behind. She had insisted, her chin lifted to the horizon, eyes alive with purpose. He couldn't help watching her, thinking how strange it was that a woman who had spent her life behind bar counters could look so at home beneath an open sky. When dusk fell, they found a stream and made camp. Cole built a fire, every motion slow but sure. Lila gathered wood, her dress dusted with the color of twilight. The moment she sat across from him, the quiet settled thick between them. The crackle of fire filled what words couldn't. "You've been too quiet," she said. "Thinking." "Dangerous habit." "Safer than most of mine." She smiled faintly. "What's on your mind?" He stared into the flames. "That maybe peace ain't meant for men like me. Every time I find a little, I end up bleeding on it." "Maybe that's what peace looks like," she said softly. "You just don't recognize it yet." He glanced up. "You talk like someone who's seen both heaven and hell." "Maybe I have," she said. "And maybe I'm done letting either one tell me how to live." The firelight caught her eyes, making them glow like amber glass. He wanted to believe her, wanted to believe in something other than running. But belief had always been dangerous. "You ever think about turning back?" he asked. "To what?" He had no answer. She leaned forward, elbows on her knees. "You're not the only one with ghosts, Cole. I stayed too long in a town that kept dying around me, serving whiskey to men who forgot my name by morning. You showed up, and for the first time, I remembered I still had one." He watched her, silent. "I'm not asking you to be someone you're not," she went on. "I'm asking you to stop running from who you are." Her words landed heavy, sharp, true. He looked into the fire again, his reflection wavered by flame. "What if who I am gets you killed? Then I die, knowing I didn't waste my life hiding from it." The wind sighed through the pines. Somewhere, an owl called. Cole's hand tightened around his knee, knuckles pale in the light. "You don't know what kind of men I've been." "I know the kind of man you are right now." He raised his eyes. Her gaze didn't waver. Something in his chest shifted, slow as the turning of earth. The fire burned lower. Shadows drew closer. He stood, walked around the flames, and knelt in front of her. "You make it sound so simple." "It is. If you stop fighting what's already true." He reached for her hand. She let him. The touch felt like a confession. Her voice trembled, though not from fear. "I don't want to lose this." "You won't," he said, but the words came out like a prayer he didn't believe in. At that moment, thunder rolled low in the distance. Cole turned his head toward it, his instincts sharpening. He stood, scanning the dark ridge. Far off, flickers of movement, lanterns, riders again. "They found us," he said. Lila rose to her feet. "The sheriff? Or someone worse? Doesn't matter. We can't stay." She grabbed her satchel, firelight catching her face. "Where will we go?" "Up. The ridge'll cover us till morning." He kicked dirt over the flames, plunging them into half-dark. She stepped close, her hand brushing his arm. "Cole?" He looked at her. "Whatever happens tonight, don't disappear on me again." He cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheek. "Not unless I have to." Then the night broke open with the sound of gunfire. They ran for the horses, the desert alive with echoing shots. Bullets sparked against rock. The moon flashed silver over their shoulders. Cole swung into the saddle, reached down for her hand, pulled her up behind him. The wind tore through their hair, the rhythm of hooves like a heartbeat against the earth. The ridge loomed ahead, a black spine cutting through the stars. She held tight, her face pressed to his back. "We can't outrun them forever," she shouted over the roar. "I don't plan to." "What then?" He turned his head slightly, voice low, fierce. "We make our stand under the western moon." The moon rode high when they reached the ridge, full and cold and watching. The land below lay dark, except for the faint glow of the riders' lanterns cutting through the valley. Cole pulled the horse to a stop and listened. Every instinct he'd ever trusted told him what was coming. "They're close," he said. "Too close." Lila dismounted, boots sinking into the loose dirt. Her breath came quick from the climb, her shawl flapping in the wind. "We can't keep running, Cole." "I know." He tied the horse behind a jut of rock and checked his revolver. The click of the cylinder was soft, final. Lila watched him with a look that felt like both fear and faith. "You think they'll listen if you talk to them?" she asked. "Men like that don't hear words," he said. "Only thunder." She stepped closer, placed a hand on his chest. "Then don't let it be your thunder they remember." He caught her wrist, his touch gentle but firm. "If it comes to it, you ride. Don't look back. I won't leave you." "Yes, you will." Her eyes glistened in the pale light. "You think I came this far just to watch you die?" "I think you came this far to find yourself." "Don't lose that because of me." She shook her head, voice breaking. "You're part of that now." The words struck something deep in him, something that had been waiting all these years to be spoken aloud. He leaned his forehead against hers, the world narrowing to breath and silence. "Then maybe it's time I stop running from what's mine." Below, the sound of horses grew louder. The riders spread wide, forming a crescent of light in the dark. Cole crouched behind a boulder, gun in hand. Lila knelt beside him, her fingers trembling against his sleeve. When the first shot came, it shattered the stillness. Dust burst from the rocks around them. Cole fired once, then again, clean and measured. The air filled with smoke and thunder. "Cole!" she cried. "There's too many." "Doesn't matter," he said. "They don't know what they're fighting for. I do." He moved with the grace of a man who'd made peace with the end. But the end never came the way he expected. The sheriff's voice rose from below. "Cole! Enough blood! Drop it!" Cole froze. "You again." The sheriff rode into the moonlight, alone now, gun low but steady. "You made your point. Let the rest of them go." Cole's jaw clenched. "You sent them." "I tried to stop them. They wouldn't listen. They're dead now, and so's this feud." The wind howled through the ridge. Cole stepped forward, his face pale in the moonlight. "Then what now?" The sheriff hesitated. "Now you ride away. I'll tell the territory you're gone. But if I see you again, I can't turn my eyes. Lila stepped from the shadows. He's not running anymore. The sheriff looked at her, weary eyes softening. Then make sure he keeps it that way. He turned his horse and rode off into the dark. When the echo faded, Cole dropped to one knee, gun slipping from his hand. The silence pressed down heavy. Lila ran to him, her hands on his face. "You're bleeding again." He smiled faintly. "Just a scratch." "Seems to be my way." Her voice broke. "I thought I'd lost you." "You can't lose what you've already found." She kissed him then, hard, desperate, full of everything they hadn't said. His arms came around her, pulling her close until the world disappeared again. The wind, the moon, the ridge, all of it blurred into warmth and breath and quiet surrender. When they pulled apart, dawn was beginning to glow in the east. Cole looked toward it, the first light painting his face in gold. "What now?" she asked. He took a deep breath, the air sharp and clean. "Now we ride into whatever's left. Together." She nodded, tears glinting but no longer heavy. "Together, then?" They walked back to the horse. He helped her up, swung into the saddle behind her. As the sun climbed higher, the ridge fell away behind them, and the desert stretched wide and forgiving. For the first time, the outlaw didn't feel hunted. He felt home. The dawn came soft, spilling gold across the open desert. The storm was gone. The land lay washed and quiet, like it had been waiting for this morning all along. Cole and Lila rode slow, the rhythm of the horse steady beneath them, the air cool and clean. They didn't speak for miles. Words felt too small. The silence between them wasn't empty anymore. It was full of what they'd endured and what they'd finally found. By midday, they reached a valley where the grass still held dew. A narrow creek wound through it, glinting like glass beneath the sun. Cole stopped the horse and looked around. "We'll rest here." Lila slid down, her boots sinking into the damp earth. She stretched, face turned toward the light. "It's beautiful." He dismounted beside her, hat in hand. "Haven't seen it this quiet in years." She knelt by the creek, trailing her fingers through the water. "Maybe this is what peace feels like." He crouched beside her. "You think it'll last?" She looked at him, a small smile on her lips. "Peace doesn't have to last forever, just long enough to matter." He nodded. "Guess I can live with that." They stayed there for hours, the world moving slow around them. Cole washed the dirt from his wound, and Lila wrapped it with the torn edge of her scarf. Her touch was gentle, certain. "You need time to heal," she said. He looked up at her. "Maybe I already am." She laughed softly. "That's a start." The wind moved through the grass, carrying the smell of rain and wild sage. A hawk circled overhead, its shadow sweeping across the earth. Cole leaned back on his elbows, watching the sky. "You ever think about settling somewhere?" She glanced at him. "You mean a town?" "Maybe. A place no one knows my name." "And what would you do there, outlaw?" He smiled, the kind of smile that came slow and stayed. "Fix fences, raise horses, forget how to draw faster than a man can breathe." She tilted her head. "And me?" "You'd tell stories at night," he said. "About the woman who tamed a ghost." Her breath caught. "You make it sound easy." "It ain't," he said. "But maybe that's the point." The afternoon slipped toward evening. The sun burned low, the light turning amber. Lila lit a small fire near the creek, and they sat close beside it. The heat brushed their faces, soft and steady. She spoke first. "You think the sheriff kept his word?" "I think he's tired of chasing shadows," Cole said. "Same as me. You'll always be looking over your shoulder, won't you?" He looked at her, eyes dark and honest. "Maybe. But if you're there, I don't mind what's behind me." She reached for his hand. "Then we start here." He squeezed her fingers, rough against soft. "Here's good." The fire crackled. The stars began to appear, slow, one by one, until the whole sky shimmered with quiet light. Lila rested her head against his shoulder. "You ever think about what comes after all this?" He looked toward the horizon, where the moon was beginning to rise. "After this," he said, "comes whatever we make of it." The moon climbed higher, silver spilling across the water. Cole pulled her closer, his breath steady against her hair. She closed her eyes, feeling the beat of his heart, the rhythm of the horse somewhere beyond, the hum of life starting over. In that moment, the world was still. The outlaw had found peace. The woman had found her truth. And the desert, vast and endless, held them both beneath the western moon. The fire burned low, its last light flickering against the earth. Lila's voice came soft, almost a whisper. "Do you think love like this survives?" He smiled. "It don't die. It just rides on, quiet as the wind." They stayed that way till dawn. Two souls resting where the road finally ended, the sky turning gold again, the promise of another day waiting just beyond the hills. If this story has touched a tender place in your heart, let your light stay with us. Comment, share, and subscribe so this western fire keeps burning for you.